Hi everyone, it's Ronnette Parker from Ronnette Parker ABA, and today is day 8 in our 20 questions in 20 days. Our next question is about prompting hierarchy, otherwise known as levels of prompting that you can give a student or your own child to support their success in learning a new skill. Now, a lot of the times when you'll look online or be taught this from an ABA, there is going to be the terms most to least amount of prompts. So that's just meaning that the most amount of prompts you're going to give is going to be, or the child is going to be the most dependent on you. You're giving them the most support you can give. You can be pairing prompts, anything to help support the student. This is going to be the most invasive type of prompting because you're physically giving them support and you're giving them the most amount of prompts that you can to least amount of prompts. So this is the most independent, the least intrusive for them, because you are fading your physical self away from them because they're not needing as much support and they're able to do a task more independently. So the list I'm going to give you is a list that I go by. It's not an exhaustive list. You can look online. You can find other types of prompting. You can find where these lists are broken down into smaller parts as well. But these are what I use, so I'm just going to pass this on. This is also written about in my blog for next week, for Monday. So if you want more in depth about it, please feel free to visit RonnetteParkerABA.com and see my blog on Monday in regards to prompting hierarchy. So the first prompt I use is going to be physical, which would be like hand over hand. You're going to see it written maybe in IEPs when they need some modifications or accommodations. So if they may need hand over hand, it's going to be HOH. And that's where you physically, like if you want the student to write, you're gonna physically put your hand on their hand with the pencil in their hand and help them either trace or write, but you're giving that physical support. If you need them to move towards a response, if they're not able to grab, pick up, point, then maybe you're just having them move their body towards a correct response. Then you can gently move their body, as long as it's okay with them, and help them pick out the correct response. The next one you can use is verbal. So if I want them to do something, just like it's self-explanatory, if I tell them clap your hands, then they're gonna clap their hands, hopefully. And so I'm just giving a verbal response, a verbal cue, I'm sorry. I can also pair that with my next step, which would be model. So if I want to model something, I'm gonna show them what the correct response is so they can imitate it. So if I want to pair it with verbal, which feel free to pair any one of these because that will add to supports and be more helpful if a student needs it. I can say, clap your hands, and I'm modeling and I'm verbally cueing. So I'm showing them what I want them to do. The next one would be gestural. That can either be I use my fingers to point, I can move my body towards a correct response, I can just look at the student's hands if I'm wanting them to pick up something or I'm wanting them to do something with their hands, just using my body to gesture to what I want them to do. The next one would be visual, which would be textual or written. So I can write down a sequence of events that I want the task to go in. I can do a checklist for them. I can use pictures as well. Anything that's going to help them visually see what I want them to do. So that would be the next one. And then the next one would be spatial or proximity. So I am moving the picture or item, whatever the task is, the correct response. So say I have a field of 4 pictures that I am showing a student and I ask them to pick the ball, the picture with the ball. I'm going to move the picture of the ball a little bit closer to them. So the correct response is closer to them. The incorrect responses are further away. they're more apt to pick that one. And then once they get that, I can fade the prompting as well. Next one would be sequential. So I show them the order in which I want this to go. So I will prompt. This works well with modeling first too. Like I said, if you are pairing some of these, that works really well for students. Once you start pairing these and they're starting to master them, then you can fade. So you can fade one of the prompts. Say I'm using, like I use the verbal and the modeling. Once they're getting the clap your hands after I'm modeling it and verbally telling them, I can back off on my modeling. So I'll fade that and just verbally tell them, clap your hands. So this, like I said, is not an exhaustive list, and you can look all over the internet, and there's other ones too that are great and might work really well for your student or child. Once we start doing this in ABA, you're going to be able to tell the effectiveness of the prompting you're using by how many cues that the student needs. So if they're needing a lot of cues on how to do it, then you notice it's not very effective. You need to back down to either pairing it with another cue or try something a little more hands-on, like the hand over hand. If the student is not needing a lot of prompting and is successful in the cues that you're giving them and the prompts, then you're going to know they're ready to go on to the next skill. I talked before in my blogs about discrete trial teaching, so this is where we would use this. When a task is too challenging, say I've had students that needed help with a toileting routine, so it's a self-care routine. What I would do is teach each component of that individually, and I would pair it with a visual, sequential, a checklist, 1, 2, 3, what order are we going in, what is expected. Once they are able to get some of those, I can fade some of the cues, the prompts that I'm giving them. Once the student is able to get each component, because remember, discrete trial training is breaking down the whole task into smaller components and teaching them individually until each one is mastered by the student. And when you know they're mastered is when they're able to complete each task individually, independently as well. So what I will do after that, once each component is mastered independently, I will then behavior chain. And behavior chaining is linking together or chaining together each of the components so that the student is completing from start to end the whole task independently. They're behavior chaining. And we all do this when we're learning new things. I gave a little example in my blog about when my dad was learning how to play guitar, and he learned in his 60s, he gave up racing and he decided to teach himself how to play guitar. And so he spent a lot of time with a teacher, with videos, with all kinds of stuff, playing the same couple chords over and over again until they were mastered. Then he would go on to a more challenging combination of chords until they're mastered. And what he did then, when he was able to play a whole chord of music, he was able to link together all of those. So he was behavior chaining after that, and he didn't even know it. So we all do it. That's about it for now for prompting hierarchy, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was it's helpful for you. If you like what you hear, head over to my YouTube video and my YouTube channel and subscribe. Head over to my Facebook page, Ronnette Parker ABA, and like the page. And I had mentioned before that pretty soon we're going to be introducing another platform that I'm really excited about, and it's going to be great for you and your children. And I'm excited to introduce that, and that will be probably in about a couple days to a week. I will be ready to introduce what that is, so stay tuned. And as always, have a wonderful day and shine on.